The ship called UES Pioneer moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was not a beautiful ship. It was made of metal and had sharp edges. The hull showed marks from small rocks that had hit it during the long journey, but to Captain Park, it was the most important ship ever built by humans. She stood on the bridge and watched the massive space station grow larger on the screen. Station Horizon 9, the place where 12 alien species met to discuss trade and politics, the place where humanity would introduce itself to the galaxy. "We are receiving a signal," said Ensign from her station. She was young, only 24 years old, and this was her first mission. Her hands were shaking slightly. "They are giving us permission to dock." Lieutenant looked up from his engineering console. He was a tall man with tired eyes and oil stains on his uniform. "Captain, they scanned our ship. They know what we have." Nodded slowly. She knew this moment would come. The aliens had technology that humans could only dream about. Faster-than-light travel, energy shields, weapons that fired beams of pure light. And humanity had nuclear engines and guns that shot metal bullets. "Let them look," she said quietly. "We are not here to impress them, we are here to talk." The Pioneer docked at the station with a loud clang of metal against metal. Ambassador Han was waiting at the airlock. He was an older man with hair and a calm face. He had spent 30 years as a diplomat on Earth, solving conflicts between nations. Now he would try to make friends with creatures from other worlds. "Are you ready?" asked him. Smiled, but his eyes were serious. "I have talked to presidents and kings. I have ended wars with my words, but this," he looked at the airlock door, "this is different. These beings have traveled between stars for thousands of years. To them, we are children." The door opened. A tall creature stood waiting for them. It was made of something that looked like blue crystal. Light moved inside its body like slow lightning. This was one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "Welcome, humans," they said. Its voice sounded like glass breaking, but somehow the words were clear. "I am called Bright Voice. I will take you to the council chamber." They walked through halls made of white material that glowed softly. Other aliens passed them and stopped to stare. Saw creatures with too many eyes, beings that floated instead of walking, and things that had no shape she could understand. All of them looked at the humans with curiosity. Some of them looked with something else, something like pity. The council chamber was huge. 12 platforms rose from the floor in a circle, each one holding representatives from a different species. In the center was a small platform for guests. The humans walked to it and stood under the gaze of beings that had built empires when humans were still living in caves. "The representatives from Earth," announced Bright Voice. "They request membership in the Galactic Trade Assembly." For a moment there was silence. Then one of the aliens made a sound. It took a second to understand what it was. Laughter. The creature laughing was from the collective. It had a body like a snake covered in silver scales, and its mouth was full of small, sharp teeth. "Membership," it said. "These creatures, look at their ship. It burns fuel like animals burning wood." Another voice joined in. This one came from a being that looked like a cloud of purple smoke. "Their weapons fire metal balls. Metal balls. My children's toys are more advanced." The laughter spread through the chamber. Felt her face grow hot. Beside her, his hands closed into fists, but remained calm. His expression did not change at all. "We have reviewed your technology," said Bright Voice. There was not laughing, but there was something in its voice that might have been amusement. "Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. Your medical science is basic. You have only just discovered how to leave your own solar system." "That is true," said. His voice was steady and clear. "We are new to space travel. We have much to learn." "Learn?" The representative slithered forward on its platform. "What can you possibly offer the assembly? What do you have that we need?" Paused before answering. "We have survived. Our planet has seen ice ages and asteroid impacts. We have fought wars that killed millions. We have poisoned our own air and water. And yet here we stand. Perhaps that is worth something. The chamber grew quiet, the purple smoke being drifted closer to its platform's edge. You think suffering makes you special. Every species suffers. It is not an achievement. No, agreed. But learning from suffering might be. We do not ask for charity. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves. The council members looked at each other. Silent messages passed between them in ways humans could not see. Finally, Bright Voice spoke again. The council has decided. Humanity will be given observation status. This is the lowest level of membership. You may trade at designated stations. You may not vote in council matters. You may not travel freely in assembly space. These restrictions will be reviewed in 50 of your years. 50 years. Felt the weight of those words. They would all be old or dead before humanity got another chance. We accept, said, and we thank the council for this opportunity. As they walked back to their ship, the sound of alien laughter followed them through the halls. Eyes were wet with tears she was trying to hide, walked stiffly, his jaw tight with anger. But noticed something. Lieutenant was not just angry, he was thinking. His eyes moved quickly and his lips were pressed together in the way they always were when he was solving a problem. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Looked at her. "They're shields," he said. "Did you see the readings when they scanned us?" "I saw them laugh at our technology." "Yes, but I saw something else." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, plasma, particle beams, lasers. They have not used kinetic weapons for thousands of years. They have forgotten about them completely." Felt a cold feeling in her stomach. "What are you saying?" Did not answer directly. He just looked back at the chamber they had left, where the most powerful beings in the galaxy were still laughing at the primitive humans. "I am saying," he said slowly, "that maybe being primitive is not such a bad thing." The UES Pioneer undocked from Station Horizon 9 and began its long journey home. Behind it, the lights of the station grew smaller until they disappeared among the stars. The humans were going back to Earth. They were going back to prepare. 15 years passed like water through open fingers. On the surface, nothing seemed to change. Human traders visited alien stations with their slow ships. Human diplomats smiled politely when aliens made jokes about their backward technology. Human scientists asked simple questions and took careful notes. But deep beneath the mountains of Earth, and hidden in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, something else was happening. Admiral walked through a tunnel carved from solid rock. The walls were bare and cold. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. He was 60 years old now, and his hair had turned completely white. But his eyes were still sharp, and his back was still straight. He had been a captain once, commanding a small patrol ship near Mars. Now he led the United Earth Defense Initiative, a project so secret that only 200 people knew it existed. "Admiral," said a voice behind him, "Doctor is waiting for you." Nodded and kept walking. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber. It was as big as a sports stadium, and every part of it was filled with activity. Engineers worked on strange machines. Scientists argued over computer screens. Soldiers trained with weapons that had never been seen before. Doctor stood in the center of it all. She was a small woman with messy hair and glasses that were always dirty. She wore a lab coat covered in burn marks and chemical stains. But when she looked at, her eyes were bright with excitement. "You have to see this," she said. She did not even say hello. They walked to a testing range at the far end of the chamber. A metal target stood at one end. It was made from the same material as ship armor. Humanity had obtained a small piece through channels that preferred not to think about too carefully. "Watch," said. She pressed a button on her tablet. A gun mounted on the wall fired. It made a sound like thunder, and a streak of light crossed the room. The metal target exploded into 1,000 pieces. stared at the smoking remains. That was a... Not just any, walked to the destroyed target and picked up a fragment. This is armor. It can stop a plasma beam that would melt through a mountain. It can survive temperatures that would turn steel into gas. But a simple metal slug traveling at 12 kilometers per second. She dropped the fragment. It hit the floor with a small clink. Nothing. Their shields are the same. Worse, their shields are designed to disperse energy, heat, light, electromagnetic radiation. They have been fighting with energy weapons for so long that they forgot about kinetic force. A bullet is not energy. It is just mass and speed. Their shields do not know how to stop it. Felt something warm spread through his chest. After 15 years of preparing, after 15 years of being laughed at, they finally had proof. How fast can we build these weapons? Smiled, it was not a kind smile. We have already started, come, there is something else you need to see. They took an elevator that went up for several minutes. When the doors opened, found himself standing in a glass observation room. Below him was a shipyard, and in that shipyard was the largest thing he had ever seen built by human hands. The ship was 5 kilometers long. It was made of black metal that did not reflect light. Its surface was covered with hundreds of batteries, missile tubes, and armor plates thick enough to stop a nuclear bomb. It looked like a weapon that had been given the shape of a ship. We call it the Hammer of Soul, said. It has no energy shields because we cannot make them yet. Instead, it has armor, lots of armor. It cannot travel as fast as alien ships, but it does not need to. It just needs to get close enough to fire. How many guns? 300, 2,000 missile tubes, and one special weapon, pointed at the front of the ship where a massive barrel extended from the bow. A mass driver. It can fire a tungsten rod the size of a bus at 3% of the speed of light. Nothing in the galaxy can survive a direct hit. Stood in silence for a long moment. He thought about the ambassador who had called them primitive. He thought about the snake-like who had laughed at their metal bullets. He thought about 50 years of waiting for permission to be treated as equals. How soon can it fly? He asked. 6 months. Make it 4. Nodded. There is one more thing, Admiral. Our intelligence officer has something you need to hear. They met Analyst No in a dark room filled with communication equipment. She was young, barely 30, but she had a gift for understanding alien languages and codes. For 10 years, she had been listening to messages that crossed the galaxy. 3 days ago, I intercepted a transmission from deep space, said. She played an audio file. The sounds were harsh and violent like rocks grinding together. This is from the hegemony. His blood went cold. They were spoken about in whispers at alien stations. They were conquerors, destroyers. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who resisted, even though we're afraid of them. What does it say? Took a deep breath. They are planning an invasion. They have identified what they call weak species, species that would be easy to conquer. They plan to start with the weakest one. She paused. They plan to start with us. When? The message said they are assembling a fleet. Based on other communications I have intercepted, I believe they will arrive in our system within 2 years. 2 years, thought about the Hammer of Soul. He thought about thee and the missiles and the mass driver. He thought about all the secret shipyards hidden throughout the solar system, building more vessels just like it. They think we are weak, he said slowly. They think we have nothing but old technology and primitive weapons. Yes, Admiral. Smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in months. Good. Let them keep thinking that. He turned to leave the room, then stopped at the door. Contact Commander Shin. Tell him to prepare his pilots and send a message to Captain Park. What should the message say? Looked back at the screens showing alien transmissions, all the secret conversations of species who thought humans were not worth noticing. Tell her to come home. Tell her the waiting is over. Deep in the shipyard, the Hammer of Soul waited in darkness. Workers moved across its surface like ants on a sleeping giant. They welded armor plates and loaded ammunition. They tested systems and ran simulations. The ship was almost ready, and soon the galaxy would learn what humans could do when they were pushed too far. The laughter would stop. One way or another, the laughter would stop. The fleet came out of faster-than-light travel like wolves entering a field of sheep. 200 warships appeared near the edge of the solar system, their dark hulls blocking out the distant stars. Each ship was a monster of war, covered in weapons that could crack a planet in half. Commander Moon watched them on her screen from the bridge of the defense station near Neptune. She was a small woman with short hair and a scar across her left cheek. She had gotten that scar fighting pirates near Jupiter 10 years ago. Now she faced something much worse. 200 ships confirmed, reported the officer beside her. They are moving toward Earth at attack speed. Pressed a button on her chair. All ships, this is Defense Command. Execute plan Falling Leaf. I repeat, Falling Leaf. Across the solar system, Earth's official defense fleet moved into position. 30 ships, all of them old, all of them slow, all of them exactly what the aliens expected to see. They would scan these ships and see nuclear engines and metal bullets. They would laugh just like everyone else had laughed. That was the plan. The battle began near Saturn. The human ships fired their weapons, and they barely noticed. Missiles exploded against energy shields without leaving a scratch. Bullets bounced off armor like rain off a roof. They did not even slow down as they destroyed the first wave of human defenders. Captain Park watched from far away, hiding behind the moon called Titan. She was on the bridge of the Hammer of Soul, and her crew surrounded her in tense silence. 15 years had passed since that day at Station Horizon 9. Was older now, with lines around her eyes and in her hair, but she still stood the same way, straight and proud and ready. 12 ships destroyed, reported Ensign. She was not an ensign anymore, not really. She was a full bridge officer now, but old habits were hard to break. They are not even bothering to aim carefully. They think this is too easy. Chief Warrant Officer Ryu sat at the weapons console. He was an old soldier who had fought in the last war on Earth before anyone knew aliens existed. His hands rested on the controls like a musician ready to play. Just say the word, Captain. Not yet, said. Let them get closer. On the main screen, more human ships died. Their crews had known this would happen. They were volunteers, every one of them. They had agreed to be bait so that the real fleet could stay hidden. The fleet passed Jupiter, then they passed Mars. Finally, they reached Earth orbit. The planet hung in space like a blue jewel. 7 billion people lived on its surface. 7 billion people who had no idea that death was floating above their heads. The commander sent a message. His face appeared on every screen on Earth. He was a massive creature, covered in bone plates and metal implants. His eyes glowed with red light. Humans, he said. His voice was like a machine grinding meat. Your resistance has been amusing. Your tiny ships and primitive weapons have provided entertainment for my warriors. But now it is over. Surrender your planet. Surrender your people. You will serve the hegemony or you will die. In the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, Admiral stood before a wall of screens. His white hair was perfectly neat. His uniform had no wrinkles. He looked like a man going to a formal dinner, not a man facing the end of his species. Send the reply, he said calmly. A communications officer pressed a button. His face appeared on the commander's screen. This is Admiral of the United Earth Defense Initiative. We do not surrender. We do not serve. And we are not as primitive as you think. He nodded to another officer. Launch the hammer. Behind Titan, the darkness moved. The Hammer of Soul emerged from its hiding place, engines burning bright. Beside it came 11 more ships, each one just as massive, just as covered in weapons. The 12 hammers of humanity, built in secret over 15 years. They scanned the new arrivals. For a moment there was silence on their communication channels. Then the laughter started. These human ships had no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no particle beams. They were just metal and engines and tubes that fired bullets. "Destroy them," the commander ordered. "Destroy these primitive insects." 50 warships turned to face the human fleet. They charged their energy weapons, preparing to wipe out this pathetic attempt at resistance. Captain Park watched them come. She felt calm, very calm. This was the moment she had waited 15 years for. "All ships," she said, "fire." 300 on each ship activated at once. 3,600 guns total. They fired tungsten slugs the size of footballs at 12 kilometers per second. The first ship died before its crew understood what was happening. The slugs passed through its energy shield like it was not there. They hit the hull and kept going, tearing through decks and engines and crew quarters. The ship broke apart in a cloud of fire and metal. The second ship died a second later, then the third, then 10 more at once. The commander screamed orders, but it was too late. His shields were useless. His armor was useless. The human weapons were too simple, too old, too primitive for his defenses to understand. In 12 minutes, 40 ships were floating debris. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. "Impossible," the commander whispered. His red eyes were wide with something he had not felt in centuries: fear. "This is impossible." Captain Park appeared on his screen. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "You came here expecting sheep," she said. "You found wolves. Now run. Run back to your masters and tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity does not surrender. Tell them that humanity does not serve. Tell them that if they ever come back, we will be waiting." The remaining ships turned and fled. They engaged their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the darkness between stars. On Earth, people who had been hiding in shelters came out to look at the sky. They did not know exactly what had happened, but they knew they were alive. They knew someone had saved them. In the command center, Admiral allowed himself a small smile. "Send the battle footage to Station Horizon 9. Send it to every species in the assembly. Let them all see what primitive technology can do." Chief Ryu sat back in his chair on the Hammer of Soul. His hands were still steady, but his heart was pounding. Beside him was crying, happy tears, relieved tears. Captain Park looked at her crew, these brave people who had trusted her with their lives. "Take us home," she said quietly. "We have earned some rest." The Hammer of Soul turned toward Earth. Behind it, the wreckage of the fleet tumbled slowly through space. Metal and crystal and the bodies of creatures who had thought humans were too weak to fight. Across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, aliens watched the footage of the battle. They saw energy shields fail against simple metal. They saw the most feared warriors in the galaxy running away from ships that burned fuel and fired bullets. The laughter stopped. Everywhere on every world, the laughter finally stopped. Station Horizon 9 was in chaos. Ambassador Han walked through the same white halls he had walked 15 years ago, but everything was different now. Aliens who had once looked at him with pity now moved out of his way. Some of them bowed, others ran. Behind him walked Admiral in full military uniform, medals shining on his chest. And behind the Admiral, visible through every window, floated 12 human dreadnoughts, the hammers of humanity, waiting. The council chamber was full when they arrived. All 12 species were present, but they were not sitting calmly on their platforms anymore. They were arguing, shouting. Some of them were screaming. "They must be destroyed," yelled the representative. The same snake-like creature who had laughed at human technology was now shaking with fear. "Before they grow stronger, before they decide to conquer us all." "Impossible," said another voice. This came from the purple smoke being called the, "Did you see the battle footage? Their weapons go through our shields like nothing. If we attack them, we die." "Then we should make peace," said a third voice. "We should offer them whatever they want." "And become their slaves? Never." The arguing stopped when stepped onto the central platform. He was 70 years old now, his hair completely white, his face covered in wrinkles. But his voice was still strong. "Thank you all for this warm welcome," he said. There was no anger in his words, but everyone heard the edge beneath them. "It is good to be back." Bright voice, the representative floated forward. The crystal being looked smaller somehow, less bright. "Ambassador Han, the council wishes to discuss the recent events." "You mean the battle, where we destroyed 40 warships in 12 minutes? Silence fell over the chamber. "We were defending ourselves," continued. "They came to conquer our world. They came to kill our people and take our planet. We stopped them. That is all." "But your weapons," said its voice was much quieter now. "We did not know, we could not have known." "No, you could not, because you were too busy laughing at us to look closely." The words hung in the air like a blade. Several aliens looked away, unable to meet the old man's eyes. 15 years ago you gave us observation status, the lowest tier. You told us we were too primitive to matter. You told us to wait 50 years for another chance." Paused. "We did not wait." Admiral stepped forward. "While your species were laughing at our old technology, we were studying yours. While you dismissed us as backward children, we were building weapons that could destroy your fleets. We did not forget the insults. We did not forget the mockery. We simply used it." "What do you want?" asked Bright Voice. For the first time there was something like respect in this glass-breaking voice. "You have the power to demand anything. What do you want from us?" Looked at the Admiral. Some silent message passed between them. Then the ambassador turned back to the council. "We want what we asked for 15 years ago. A chance to be part of your community. A chance to trade, to learn, to grow alongside you. We do not want to conquer. We do not want revenge." He paused. "But we will not be mocked. Not anymore. Not ever again." Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded through the station. Red lights flashed. A moment later, a new image appeared on the chamber's main screen. It was a fleet, a massive fleet, thousands of ships stretching across space like a dark cloud. "The hegemony," said a frightened voice. "They are coming, all of them, their entire armada." Doctor, who had been standing quietly beside the Admiral, stepped forward to study the image. 4,000 ships, she said calmly. "Maybe more. They are not coming for Earth this time. They are coming for everyone." Panic erupted in the chamber. The representative was screaming. Was trying to flee. Even Bright Voice seemed frozen with fear. "They have never assembled a fleet this large," someone said. "They mean to conquer the entire assembly. Our shields cannot stop their weapons." "Then we will die. We will all die." "Enough." The word cut through the chaos like a knife. Everyone turned to look at Admiral. "Your shields cannot stop weapons," he said calmly, "but ours can. Your energy beams barely scratch armor, but ours go through it like paper." He looked around the chamber, meeting every terrified eye. "You need us. You know you do. So let us talk about what we can offer each other." The negotiations lasted for 6 hours. Commander, captain of the human dreadnought, the Vengeance, reported from orbit with updated scans of the approaching enemy fleet. Doctor provided technical information about human weapons. Ambassador Han handled the politics with skill that made even the oldest alien diplomats feel like beginners. In the end, they reached an agreement. Humanity would receive full membership in the Galactic Assembly, equal voting rights, equal trade access, equal respect. In return, humanity would lead the combined fleet against the hegemony. "There is one more thing," said as the agreement was being finalized. 15 years ago, someone in this chamber laughed at us. Someone called our weapons toys." The representative lowered its head. I apologize, I was wrong. I did not understand." "No, you did not." His voice softened slightly. "But we are not here for apologies. We are here to survive, all of us together." He extended his hand toward the snake-like alien. After a long moment, the reached out with one of its scaled limbs and touched the human's palm. It was the first handshake between their species. It would not be the last. Outside the station, the human fleet waited. 12 ships against 4,000. Terrible odds, impossible odds. But they would not fight alone. Already, alien vessels were arriving from across the galaxy. Cruisers with their crystal hulls, carriers surrounded by clouds of fighter drones, ships of every shape and size, all gathering for the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Soul and watched the coalition forming around her. Humans and aliens, side by side. It was beautiful in a strange way. "Captain," said Lieutenant, "message from the Admiral. He wants you to take command of the combined fleet." Closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about that day 15 years ago, walking through alien halls while creatures laughed at her species. She thought about all the nights she had spent planning, building, preparing. Now the galaxy needed humanity. Now they were asking for help. She opened her eyes. "Tell him I accept, and tell all ships to prepare for combat. We have a war to win." The fleet began to move, heading toward the Crimson Nebula where the final battle would take place. Behind them, Station Horizon 9 grew smaller until it disappeared among the stars. Ahead of them waited 4,000 warships. Ahead of them waited destiny. The Crimson Nebula stretched across space like a wound in the darkness. Red and orange clouds of gas glowed with the light of dying stars. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, and it was about to become a graveyard. Fleet Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Soul and watched her forces gather. 800 ships from 12 different species, all united against a common enemy. 50 of those ships were human dreadnoughts, black metal giants covered in weapons that the galaxy had once called primitive. "All ships reporting ready," said Lieutenant from her station. She was a captain herself now, commanding this thunder, but she had asked to be on the flagship for this battle, had not been able to refuse. "The fleet is entering the nebula," reported Doctor. She sat at a special console, running calculations faster than any computer. 4,200 ships confirmed. They will reach engagement range in 20 minutes. 20 minutes until the biggest battle in galactic history. Pressed a button on her chair. Her face appeared on every screen in the combined fleet. Human faces and alien faces all turned to look at her. "This is Admiral Park," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "In a few minutes we will face an enemy that wants to destroy everything we have built. They want to burn our worlds and enslave our people. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid." She paused. "They are wrong." On 100 different bridges, warriors of a dozen species listened to the human commander. "Today we fight together, human and all of us standing side by side, not because we are friends, not because we have always trusted each other, but because we refuse to kneel, we refuse to surrender, we refuse to die quietly in the dark." Felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. So many lives depending on her decisions. So many souls trusting her to lead them through the fire. "When I was young," she continued, "aliens laughed at my people. They called us primitive. They said our technology was worthless. But today those same aliens stand beside us. Today they believe in us. Today we prove that the laughter was a mistake." She straightened her shoulders. "All ships prepare for Doctrine Thunder. Human vessels will form the spearhead. Allied ships will provide support and protect our flanks. We go straight for the enemy flagship. We end this in one strike." "And if we fail?" asked a voice. It was the commander, bright voice, speaking from a crystal cruiser on the fleet's left side. Smiled slightly. "Then we fail together, but I do not plan to fail." The fleet emerged from the deeper part of the nebula like a swarm of angry insects. Thousands of ships, each one bristling with weapons. At the center of the swarm floated their flagship, a vessel the size of a small moon, covered in spikes and guns and armor plates. The commander appeared on the communication screens, the same bone-plated monster who had demanded Earth's surrender months ago. His red eyes burned with hatred. "You dare challenge us," he roared. "You bring your pathetic coalition to face the might of the hegemony. We will crush you, we will burn your worlds, we will eat your children." Did not respond. She simply nodded to Chief Warrant Officer Ryu at the weapons console. "All ships," Ryu said with a grim smile, "fire at will." The battle began. 3,600 from the human fleet opened fire at once. The tungsten slugs crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds, moving faster than any living eye could follow. They slammed into the front line of ships with devastating force. Shields failed, armor cracked, ships exploded into clouds of burning metal. But 4,000 ships was a lot of ships. They kept coming, pouring fire back at the coalition fleet. Energy beams struck human dreadnoughts and bounced off their thick armor. Missiles exploded against alien shields. The space between the two fleets filled with fire and death. "We are taking damage," reported Captain Shin from the Hammer of Soul's sister ship, the Fury. "Armor holding, but we cannot take this forever." "Keep firing," ordered. "Push toward the flagship." The human ships drove forward like a wedge into the heart of the enemy formation. Behind them, cruisers fired their crystal beams at any ship that tried to flank the advance. Carriers launched thousands of drones that swarmed over enemy vessels like angry bees. They who had once laughed at human weapons now fought beside them with fierce determination. Their snake-like ships wrapped around cruisers and tore them apart with plasma claws. Still, they had numbers. For every ship the coalition destroyed, 3 more took its place. The advance slowed. Ships began to die on both sides. "We are not going to make it," Doctor said quietly. Her face was pale as she watched the numbers on her screen. "At this rate, they will overwhelm us before we reach the flagship." Stared at the massive enemy vessel in the distance. It sat at the center of the formation like a spider in its web, protected by layers of defenders. "Then we change the plan," she said. "All human ships execute the Soul maneuver." The order spread through the fleet in seconds. Every human captain knew what it meant. They had practiced it 100 times in simulation, knowing they might need it one day. All 50 human dreadnoughts turned their main weapons toward a single target. The mass drivers, the giant guns that could fire bus-sized tungsten rods at 3% of the speed of light, all aimed at the flagship. "Target locked," Ryu reported. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking slightly. "Fire," said. 50 rods of solid metal left the human ships at the same instant. They moved so fast that they seemed to teleport across the battlefield. 2,000 kilometers, 1,500. Impact. The flagship did not explode. It disintegrated. The rods hit with enough force to crack a small moon, and the ship simply came apart. Pieces of it flew in every direction, tumbling through the nebula like leaves in a storm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the fleet stopped firing. On every ship, warriors stared at their screens in shock. Their commander was gone. Their flagship was debris. The humans had destroyed an invincible fortress with 50 pieces of metal. "Now," said, "all ships advance." The coalition fleet surged forward. Without their flagship, without their commander, they began to scatter. Some ships tried to fight back, but their hearts were not in it anymore. Others simply turned and ran. The battle lasted another 3 hours, but the result was never in doubt. By the time the last ship fled into faster-than-light travel, more than 3,000 enemy vessels had been destroyed. The coalition had lost 200 ships, thousands of lives from dozens of species. It was a victory, but it came with a heavy price. Park stood on her bridge as the stars grew quiet again. The crimson nebula still glowed red around them, but now it held the wreckage of the galaxy's greatest battle. "Admiral," said softly, Message from the Council. They want to make you Supreme Commander of the new Coalition Defense Force. Shook her head. No, tell them I suggest a rotating council instead. Representatives from all species making decisions together. We did not fight this battle so that one person could rule everyone. She turned away from the window. Her body felt heavy with exhaustion. 15 years of preparation, months of battle, and now, finally, peace. What will you do now? Asked. Rest, said with a tired smile. Plant a garden somewhere. Watch the stars without calculating how to destroy enemy ships. As she walked toward the door, a young alien ensign stopped her. He was his body made of pale crystal, his eyes full of curiosity. Admiral, he said hesitantly, may I ask you something? Of course. Your weapons, the en masse drivers, why did you keep them? Everyone else abandoned kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. Why did your species keep using them? Looked at the young alien for a long moment. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a war on Earth with nothing but courage and simple tools. She thought about all the humans who had struggled and suffered and refused to give up, generation after generation. Because we never forgot, she said finally, that the simplest solution is often the best one, and because we learned long ago, through hard experience, that you should never throw away something that works. The young bowed his crystal head. Thank you, Admiral, I will remember that. Walked off the bridge and into the corridor. Behind her, the crew of the Hammer of Soul began the long work of going home. Far away, on 100 different worlds, the news of the battle spread. Stories were told about the humans who had come from a small blue planet, the primitive species that everyone had laughed at, the warriors with their simple weapons who had saved the galaxy. Children of every species would grow up hearing these stories. They would learn that courage comes in many forms. They would learn that being underestimated is not always a weakness. And they would learn, most importantly, to never laugh at anyone again. Because you never know what they are building in the shadows. You never know what they might become.